So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. As you may know, you have a plethora of resources that are available to you and your family. Chanel Morrow is here today to be able to give you a little bit more information and provide insight about what navigating a survivor benefits plan looks like and what it can look like for a family who has a family member with special needs, as well as if you have a family member who is transitioning to adulthood or permanent dependency. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please ensure that your mic is muted during the presentation so that everyone has the opportunity to hear what is being presented. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or use the feature where you can raise your hand and I will make sure that your question is answered. So yeah, that's my little spiel. Chanel, you can take it away.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope y'all are doing well. My name is Chanel. I'm one of the financial counselors at Sweet and Family Support Center. I'm out of Naval Base Point, Loma, although as a team, we do still very much support the entire San Diego area. I've been here on the team over 5 years now. And it's crazy to think about. I absolutely love what I get to do because I get to help service members and their families. I'm a lifelong Navy dependent. My dad served. My husband is almost to the point of retirement is what I'm going to tell myself. And so I definitely understand what it is to be military dependent. And I'm not really sure if y'all are dependents or active yourselves. Either way, thank you for everything that you do. It does not go unseen. I am here to review Survivor Benefit Plan with you guys. It is one of my favorite topics, but especially as it pertains to EFMP families. So I have slides to show you. I also have the DoD instruction pulled up. So if we have any deep dive questions, I can find the answer to that for you. I do believe there's just 4 of us in here total, right? Including myself, I think. So it should be a pretty small group. I'm going to try to check the chat as we go. And so if anything does come up, if you want to write me, let me know. If not, please stop me, interrupt me, not a problem, and we'll get those questions answered. So Survivor Benefit Plan, nice little intro slide. It is a government subsidized program. It is created to be able to protect a portion of a service member's pension or retirement pay in the event that the service member passes away. Without Survivor Benefit Plan, upon the service member's passing, their pension goes away. And for a lot of military families, they are very much dependent on that pension and on that service member's income. The Survivor Benefit Plan is offered as a way to guarantee that the family will still receive something. If you do nothing, right? So if we just absolutely pretend that the Survivor Benefit Plan doesn't exist, we don't accept or deny via paperwork, please know that coverage is automatic. We're going to get into more of what that means. This is a semi-permanent, we'll call it, decision that service members and their families make at retirement. And that sounds very basic. There's a lot of details that goes into this program. So let's see what some of those look like. You have options as to what kind of coverage you would like to elect. More often than not, if a service member and their family do elect Survivor Benefit Plan, we see a lot of spouse and we see a lot of spouse and child. These are the primary highlights of each one. With spouse, as a military spouse, you are automatically entitled to Survivor Benefit Plan at the full benefit amount, and I'll review what those benefit amounts are. With spouse coverage, it will have a monthly premium of 6.5%. That 6.5% paid is so that upon the service member's passing, the spouse will receive 55% benefit. So you pay 6.5 to get 55. Spouse-only coverage protects that portion of the service member's pension upon their passing for the beneficiary spouse, as long as the beneficiary spouse does not remarry before age 55. So, fun fact, don't get remarried before age 55, if you can help it. If you're receiving survivor benefit plan income and you remarry before age 55, your benefits stop. If a spouse remarries at 55 or older, their benefits continue. There is no stop. With spouse and child, the service member is guaranteeing a portion of their pension for the spouse as the primary beneficiary, but now we have added the child as the contingent beneficiary, so that if something happens to both the retiree and the spouse, the child is then the backup beneficiary. It's not that the spouse and child receive it jointly, it's that there is a backup plan. Spouse coverage, no matter what, will be 6.5%. Here we do tack on an additional minimal cost for the child. I have personally seen it with clients as low as 2 cents to add a child. I've also seen it as much as about $7 to add a child. And there's a lot that goes into these premiums, but in short, child coverage is based on the age of the youngest child at the time of retirement. So however old that child is. We also have child and children only. So this is removing spouse completely from the equation. This is covering only child or children. You can cover more than one. The cost is still based on the age of the youngest child at the time of retirement. A few things to note, especially as it relates to EFMP families potentially. Children age out of SBP. So they age out at 18 years old or through age 22 if they are full-time unmarried students. They would have to have confirmation from their school or their institution of higher learning that they are full-time students. Fully incapacitated adult children, however, do not age out of SBP. They stay in SBP. They do have to be kept on as a dependent. So we are looking at now secondary dependency for adult incapacitated children. It is very highly recommended, something we're going to talk about here. It is very highly recommended that if you do have an incapacitated adult child or a child that will be in a, get to where they are your adult dependents, even if they're little ones now, that you look at a special needs trust. A special needs trust can be the recipient of SBP beneficiary dollars on behalf of an incapacitated adult child or an incapacitated child, so long as very specific requirements are met. Anytime it is an incapacitated child or adult child, or anytime there's a special needs trust involved, there's definitely more details, and I'm sure this isn't surprising to anybody. There's more forms, more detail, more work on your side, but that special needs trust, receiving the funds instead of the child directly, also protects the child or that dependent with their state or federal benefits they may be receiving. I promise I will explain further. We also have insurable interest as an election option. It has to be a family member other than a direct spouse, former spouse, or child. There is a limit to how closely related they need to be. It can also be a business partner with a financial vested interest in the service member's, retired service member's pension. If they have a financial interest and it's a business partner, there are additional specific requirements and justification that need to be met. The average premium for insurable interest is about, probably from what I've seen, 20 to 30%. It can be anywhere from 10 to 40% premiums as the cost. With former spouse coverage, this usually comes by way of a divorce decree. So most of our divorce service members know that this is coming. If we're unsure, or if we think we know, but not really, in either case, I would recommend reading the divorce decree, because if former spouse is entitled to that coverage, we cannot override that. The divorce decree may say that they're entitled to pension and not make mention of SBP. Those are two different things. It has to specifically state that they're entitled to survivor benefit plan, and it will usually lay out how much, how we go about paying for it. Is it up to the service member or the former spouse? What level of coverage? It is usually very dialed in. Lawyers know what they're doing with this, but not always. I have seen it that it just says the former spouse is entitled to survivor benefit plan, at which case it is at the discretion of the service member, you know, what they want to cover. There is one not on here, a level election option, I should say. It isn't listed. It is former spouse and child or children. It looks just like spouse and child, except the difference is with spouse and child, it covers current spouse and any children from any relationship. Former spouse and child covers only that former spouse and only children had with that former spouse. So it is much more restrictive. We also have the option for no beneficiary at retirement. With that, if the service member were to gain a beneficiary in retirement, they must tell DFAS of that gain within 1 year. If it is a spouse, the premiums and the benefits start at the 1 year mark. If it is a child, it begins immediately. But because we are in here, I am going to work off the assumption that your service member has dependents. Let me see. Chanel may be able to speak a little more about it, but we will be having a workshop about S&T in July. When we confirm the date, I can send it. Ooh, can I also maybe observe that if I'm not already booked with something? I would love to learn more too, and not that I don't know this. I know the material, but I'm always open to learning more. I'm so excited that you have a workshop for Specialties Trust.
Yes, of course, Chanel, you're welcome to attend as well. I'll be sending out that information when we confirm the date.
Thank you.
Of course. Are you able to speak a little bit more about it now? Or?
Yes. I actually have a slide for it that I'm going to cover.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, child and children only, they're covered until 18, and that's whether it is a child or children only option, or if it's the spouse or former spouse plus children as contingent. If there's a disabling factor in there, then there's no age restriction for the child, but there's going to be more work on your part, and it is, from what I've seen, absolutely beneficial. They are going to look at DFASs when they're gauging how much the child will cost tacked on or individually. They're going to look at the age of the service member and, honestly, primarily at the age of the youngest child at the time of retirement, and it is the youngest. If you have more than one child that you are covering, let's say there's 3 kids, all 3 kids will share the 55% benefit, and the oldest child ages out. The next 2, the middle and the youngest, will share the 55% benefit. The middle child ages out, that youngest child now gets the 55% benefit to themselves. If it is a disabled child, they're not going to age out, so they will constantly be part of that 55% equation. Here's where we start talking about special allowances made for incapacitated children. In electing SBP for an incapacitated child, you may be inadvertently impacting their eligibility for Social Security insurance, public benefits, or Medicare. That special needs trust option is going to help prevent that, because it makes the special needs trust the recipient of the money on behalf of the incapacitated child. In doing that, it doesn't, Social Security, public benefits, and Medicaid do not take that money into account. Otherwise, they can absolutely count that as income for the child, and that can will very much have an impact on the child's ability to actually receive those funds that you paid into for the child. The child would have to become, if they are not currently incapacitated, the disabling event would have to occur before their 18th birthday or by the time, or through age 22 if they're full-time students. So we can't sign up for child coverage, have them age out, then something happens to them, and then we bring them back into SBP as an incapacitated child. Once you elect child only or spouse and child coverage under SBP, the designation happens if you elect for it to go to a special needs trust, any potential benefits. That election is made on the SBP form, and the payment is made then directly to the trust on behalf of the child. Does that make sense? I'm assuming. If not, let me know in chat. A special needs trust is a legal document, and trusts are seen as an entity as far as the IRS goes. So it is designed for the benefit of the child or of the person with a disability. In most cases, it preserves that beneficiary's eligibility for other benefits. We don't want to interfere with those as much as we can avoid it. To be eligible to elect the option to cover special needs trust under survivor benefit plan, the service member, or if they have retired, must have previously elected spouse and child or child only under survivor benefit plan. There has to be an established special needs trust before you can tell DFAS to send the money to the trust, right? We can't give them a receiving location if it hasn't yet been created. If you do opt to have the SBP beneficiary dollars deposited to a special needs trust on behalf of that incapacitated child, know that that decision to go to the special needs trust is irrevocable. It cannot be undone. These choices are made on the DD 2656, and I am happy to make one of these available to you guys if you need to. I have an electronic copy I can send you. It was just updated in March of this year. That DD 2656 is required 90 days prior to retirement date. If there are updates that need to happen between that 90 days and retirement, you can make those updates. The 2656 is the pay form for all things related to that DFAS paycheck reaching the service member. So where do you want it direct deposited? What kind of tax withholding do you want, federal and state? What are your SBP elections? Are you eligible for anything else related to your pension that we need to handle on this form? This is a lengthy payroll form, right? But it is absolutely just a one-stop shop, and it covers everything that we need. Item 36 on this form, I believe it's now item 38, if I'm not mistaken. Item 36 is where you're going to check off that you do want a special needs trust as a beneficiary on behalf of a child. But that also means that 2 lines up, you're going to have to select spouse and child, child or former spouse, and children with that former spouse. You have to elect one of those options to be able to check off this box. Do select this one. Note on here, it says it is your responsibility to separately submit a written statement of the decision to have the annuity paid to special needs trust, an attorney's certification of the special needs trust, and the name and tax ID number of the special needs trust. There's also medical documentation involved in all of this, lengthy medical documentation to confirm that this incapacitated child will forever be your dependent. Things to take into account with survivor benefit plan: without it, once the retiree passes away, that pension stops completely. So you need to really evaluate as a family, as a household, is this something you need? You are going to pay into survivor benefit plan for 30 years and until age 70. I almost reversed those. 30 years and until age 70. So if your service member is retiring at 38 years old, you're going to have to pay for 32 years because you also have to be age 70. If your service member is retiring at 50, you're going to pay for 30 years and until age 80. 70 years old and 30 years of payments have to coexist. Now, if the service member passes away before those 30 years and age 70, that's fine. The premiums stop immediately and the benefits start immediately. You don't even have to have the retiree make their first payment. If they pass away, unfortunately, before their first payment's even made, the benefits start immediately. You do have a one-time, I like to call it the get out of jail free card. After month 24, before month 20 or 36, you have a 1-year window in which you can cancel SVP. You can say, I've paid into it so far. We are now fully self-insured. We don't need SVP anymore. We're good without it. You don't get money back, which you've paid in, but you don't pay any more in the future. So you do have that one-time get out of jail free card.
Chanel, can the SPP be changed once you have a trust in place?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So if you have elected spouse, if you have elected spouse and child, or former spouse and child, you have to have something in there with a child to be able to designate a special needs trust. And that special needs trust designation can happen anytime, so long as the children are still eligible for benefits. So yes, you can say, I want to cover spouse with children as contingent, and then there's a determining factor. Something happens later on while the kids are still eligible that says, okay, I've now retired. I had this happen. Now I have an incapacitated child. I would actually like for the money to go into a special needs trust. At that point, it would still be the spouse as the primary because our initial election was spouse and child. But if something happened to the retiree and the spouse, that special needs trust would receive money on behalf of the child. Did I answer your question?
Are we good to go, Chantal?
It answers some of my question. I just typed in,
Okay.
My husband has retired as of January of this year. And we are
Congratulations.
getting thank you. We are in the process of signing my son's special needs trust. We were told that we can't get NCAP until he turns 18 or get him designated as incapacitated until he turns 18. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, that little weird gray area right there.
Okay, I know as far as SVP goes, it just says that whatever the incapacitation is had to have happened before they're 18, unless they're full-time students, it has happened before they're through age 22.
Okay.
I'm truthfully not familiar with the special needs trust limitations on age. I don't know if they just won't let you do one before then. I don't know why that would be a thing though.
Well, the trust we can do. We're signing our trust tomorrow. The trust is written up. We found an attorney and everything. We have a trust written up. I just want to make sure my husband can go in and go to the SBP and change it and add the trust now, because we want to make sure my son is able to keep this going after, heaven forbid, we're gone.
Of course, after he would, in theory, reach the age of majority. Yeah. You can. It depends on the SVP elections that were made at retirement.
Okay.
If you elected spouse and child or child coverage, then your child is included in the SVP, and you can go ahead and add that special needs trust to it.
If he just
you can. Now, if your spouse, your sponsor only elected spouse coverage, then no, we cannot add the special needs trust.
And he can't change it once it's done.
No. Not if the child wasn't initially included in the SVP decision.
Okay, got it.
But it depends on what that election was. If you have a copy of the form he submitted, I can look at it with you offline.
Okay, I'll have to find it because right now I'm about ready to kill him.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Now, I don't want to say it happens often. The program was created, SVP was created in the, I want to say, early 70s. And since it was created, it's had 5 open enrollment periods. And that's anytime Congress makes just massive overhaul changes to the program. They, excuse me, they allow for an open enrollment period. So if you weren't opted in and you want to, you can. If you want to cancel, you can. If you want to change things, you can. But I would really never recommend relying on one of those to be, I would never count on that. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, then
Yes,
feel
ma'am.
like we have time to plan ahead.
Okay. Sorry to hold up your presentation. Thank you for answering my question.
Not at all. Not at all. It was a great question. Thank you. I'm sorry, I was like coughing in your ear. I'm gonna drink some water. Here it does say divorce. So if the service member and the spouse get divorced, that is something that we definitely need to keep DFAS in the loop about. Usually, truthfully, by the time you reach retirement, spouses are aware of survivor benefit plan. And if we had previously waived it, it cannot be undone. If we have spouse coverage and now we're divorced, you can contact DFAS and say we're divorced and the divorce decree doesn't mandate it. Then they're going to say, all right, cool, we'll stop your premium. If you contact DFAS and say we are divorced and it says my now former spouse gets to keep SVP, then they're going to convert you to former spouse and child coverage. But know that if the service member passes away, all premiums stop and benefits start immediately. If the beneficiary passes away, the service member retiree can contact DFAS and say, hey, can we hit the brakes on this? And it will stop all premiums coming out until the service member gains, if and when the service member gains a like dependent comparable to what they had for coverage. But I told my husband I'll hunt him if he gets remarried. With the survivor benefit plan, we need to ask ourselves if we really even need it. Are your personal assets sufficient? You might have investments, you might have savings accounts, you may have property and just different types of assets that can cover your dependents if anything happens to the service member. You may not need survivor benefit plan. I do have friends where the civilian spouse is the primary breadwinner, and that's fine. They may not need SVP. I also see a lot of dual mill couples don't each having their own pension, and their thought process sometimes is that I have my own pension. What do I need a piece of theirs for? Again, that's going to vary one client to another. You need to look and see if you have any debts, because if you have debts, is there enough income? Is there enough life insurance or assets to cover that debt should something happen to the service member? Life insurance can absolutely be an alternative or supplement depending on the situation. SVP cannot deny you. SVP is not going to raise prices on something just because your service member has some kind of VA disability claim or health issue. Thank you, military service. SVP is not going to change the prices. They're not going to play games just because those things exist. Health insurance and life insurance absolutely can. I've had clients be deemed uninsurable because of their VA disability findings. We're going to look at insurance as an alternate or supplement. I would definitely try to do that before any VA stuff happens, because they're already going to see your medical records, right? So we don't want to really add insult to injury when it comes to those insurance premiums. Don't lie about anything, but as far as premiums go, I want to make sure that you are getting as much as you can for as little cost out of pocket to you. The cost of SVP, and this is something I really wanted to get to, is deducted from the service member's pay monthly pre-tax. So there is tax savings, and there's an example of this at the bottom there. There is tax savings because of the SVP. Unfortunately, all income is going to be taxed at some point, right? So if they're taking out the premium pre-tax, that means that the benefit to spouses and or children is absolutely taxed. It's regular taxable income. The spouse coverage, as discussed, is 6.5% of the base amount. I have an example of that coming up. If you look at the bottom of the slide, and I hope you can all see this well enough, a $3,000 a month pension, assuming there's no state taxes, we're strictly federal taxes, and we are married with 4 exemptions, or 2 exemptions, so 4 people on the taxes here. We have an estimated, without SVP, tax liability per month of $164.58. That's your federal withholding amount. once we take into account 6.5% premium coming out of that $3,000 a month, that's going to reduce our taxable income. So our taxes reduced to $141.75. Means we're saving $22.83 a month in taxes. So whatever that 6.5% of 3,000 is, I want to say it's $195. That $195 minus $22 means that we're actually paying $173 in SBP because we're saving some on taxes, so there's kind of a SBP net cost. The 6.5% being gross. Taxes are really fun, aren't they? Your benefit with SBP is 55%. And here's where we start changing. I've held on because I have a tendency to get ahead of myself and I didn't want to do that. So I've held on to this. The annuity amount that is received monthly on behalf of the service member, it is received by the beneficiary, 55% of the base amount, always. The SBP benefit is always 55% of the base amount. Here's what the base amount means, so don't get it confused with base pay or pension. It's two different things. The base amount, as far as SBP goes, is anything from $300 up to the full pension amount. So if the spouse and or children do not need access upon the service member's passing to 55% of their full pension amount, that's okay. What if they only need 55% of half of the pension? So we're looking at about a quarter of the pension as a benefit. That's okay. You can choose a base amount less than the pension. Anytime you remove the spouse from the equation or you cover something that is not the full pension, so if we choose a base amount less than the full pension, that requires a spousal signature of concurrence, and that spousal signature has to be notarized. That rule exists because somebody somewhere wanted to break the rules once upon a time. So now spouse signatures need to be notarized. Make sure they're not forged. So base amounts are anything between $300 and the full pension amount. So that it looks like this. Let's say that the full pension is $3,000. We're going to go with a full base amount of the full pension, $3,000. That 6.5% premium is $195, so that the spouse, upon the service member's passing, receives 55% of the base amount, or about $1,650 per month. And remember, we said that there's a tax difference on here, so you can subtract the tax savings from that $195, and it gives you a net SBP payment amount. If you tack on children to this, it's going to be the 6.5% per spouse, plus an additional little bit to cover the child as contingent. If you cover children, it's only, without the spouse, less than the 6.5%, but it is more than tacking them on as contingent. It's like a mid-grade cost. I have the spreadsheet pulled up and I can share my screen at the end if we have time, so you can kind of see how those premiums work. I can walk you guys through it. So why take SBP into account? Well, at most, not on this slide, but at most, it should be no more than 4 years, a period, that it takes for a beneficiary to make back what was paid into SBP. Kind of like a break even. If the service member pays into SBP, for 5 years, so 5 years worth of monthly premiums, then the beneficiary makes back what was paid into it in about 8 months. And we have 10 years, we have 20 years, but look at 30 years, because the longest you're possibly going to have to pay SBP for, on average, because I know it depends on age, is about 30 years. And really, we don't typically see it a whole lot more than that. If your retiree ends up paying into SBP for 30 years, the beneficiary still makes back the money in about 2.5. So it is a very short break-even period of premium versus benefit. I love this at the bottom. It says male retiree with female spouse. Not that we can't have female retirees and male spouses or any other kind of makeup here. We can. For the most part, the military is made up of male service members, and most of them have female spouses. 75% of spouses will outlive their retiree by at least 4 years, 50% by 9 years, 25% by 15 years, and 10% by 24 years. And I taught this yesterday, and what I told them was that because you don't really hear the females sitting here saying, hold my beer and watch this, like you do with the males, right? Is that just me? Am I the only one that gets to experience that? It is kind of just the statistically what we see. But on all accounts, normally that female spouse is going to outlive that male retiree. There are tools online you can use to kind of help determine what your break even would be based on your family makeup. Here's the SEP premium worksheet. I do have it live so that if we have time here in a minute, I can show you. But if you were to pull up this SEP worksheet, and it's on the Office of the DoD Actuary, I have the link at the end here. You don't have to key in your name if you don't want to. This is just for your benefit. You can do spouse and child coverage is what I would list. Let's say that the monthly base amount, be it the full pension or that's the base you chose, $2,500. You're going to key in the date the service member joined. That month is on a drop down. Day and year, the date of retirement. Currently, the calculator does not let you estimate beyond December 31st, 2023. You cannot estimate for retirement into 2024 just yet. Your service member's date of birth, the spouse's date of birth, and the youngest child's date of birth. So all of this has to be keyed in. Are either one of you having a service member who's retiring past 2023? Like, are you just like me and really like to plan ahead so we're looking at it now for 2024, 2025? Got a second to answer. If not, I'll just carry on. Okay. I was going to give you a workaround to make this calculator work for you if you needed it to, but no stress. Once we key in all of this on the first tab of the calculator, we then get this on the third tab of the calculator. And it's going to give us a summary of what we keyed in, and then it's going to say, all right, based on your base amount, your spouse coverage for SEP is $162.50. To add SEP child coverage to that spousal coverage is 3 whole cents. Now we're looking at $162.53. Here's something I love about estimating for spouse and child together is that the calculator will also give you, hey, here's your monthly premium if you elect to only cover the child and not cover the spouse. And in this case, it's telling us that the child only coverage based on the information we input is $4 whole a month. If something happens to the service member and they pass away, the spouse or child, depending on the situation, would then receive $1,375. So you can see where that money is actually made up very quickly. And remember this 162, this premium coming out will come out pre-tax. So your service member, you and your service member would save some money on taxes, which means there's going to be a little bit less of a net SEP premium. I have heard the argument of SEP versus life insurance, and each has its pros and each has its cons. A major pro for SEP is an annuity. It cannot be outlived. And so long as the spouse does not get remarried before age 55, and if the child does not age out of the program, so if they are an incapacitated child, they will not outlive this program. They will get money every month for the rest of their lives, which is very comforting. It has an inflation fighter. What happens with retirees, if Congress can agree, is that they will get ideally a cost of living adjustment every year. I'm not going to promise it's every year, but ideally, they get a cost of living adjustment. Retirees do, just like service members do. If retirees get a cost of living adjustment in a specific year, please know that SEP beneficiaries receive the same cost of living. So if retirees get a 3% increase, SEP beneficiaries get a 3% increase on their benefit dollars received. Unfortunately, as I said previously, the beneficiary does get taxed as regular income on these SEP benefits received. because the premiums came out pre-tax for the service member. Your insurance, you can absolutely outlive the insurance, right? You can spend it quickly and in a hurry, and it might be on very valid things, but you can still outlive it. Insurance doesn't usually include an inflation fighter. Your $500,000 of life insurance is $500,000. They're not going to increase that 20 years from now just because $500,000 isn't worth as much. The major perk of insurance is that the proceeds received, if you are the beneficiary, those proceeds aren't taxed. So insurance money is yours to keep. You don't have to worry about the tax. So each, has its pros and its cons. Advantages of SBP, it's government subsidized, meaning they foot part of the bill for it. It comes out pre-tax, so it helps the service member and the household taxes here and now. Inflation protection helps. That one-time get out of jail free card exists. Only Congress can change it, so they don't really agree on a whole lot. Normally SBP updates are something that they do agree on, and if those updates are substantial, they will allow for open enrollment. You cannot outlive SBP, and you cannot be denied as a retiree SBP coverage. They can't say, oh no, you're 100% service-connected disability. We're not going to give it to you. It doesn't work that way. We have had clients who are active duty, retiring, terminally ill, and pass away very shortly after retirement. They can't be denied, so they had SBP coverage, and their beneficiaries are still receiving the funds. It is deducted automatically from the retiree pay, so believe me, DFAS is going to make sure that payment comes out before they send the direct deposit to the retiree and family. So it's easier. It's not another bill that you have to worry about going through and paying every month, right? It just happens automatically. Still keep your eye on it, but it happens automatically. SBP also, DFAS does not get any commissions, any tips, anything from somebody signing up for SBP. They do not have a dog in the fight. So there's not any additional fees or risks involved for service members and their families. So some disadvantages, that tax is going to come up at some point. Uncle Sam is going to get their taxes. Only protects their retired pay, so if as a household, you also very much rely on the service member's VA disability compensation, know that SBP does not cover that. It only covers the pension. Because there's a premium coming out, it can reduce the current retired pay being received. And because of cost of living adjustments, the premium increases too. So I want to explain this one real quick. I said spouse coverage, for example, is 6.5% of the base amount. That 6.5% is fixed. That's not going to change. Not if you sign up for it and it's 6.5% when you sign up for it. However, next year, if retirees get a 10% cost of living adjustment, because inflation is ridiculous right now, that 6.5% is going to be higher after dollar-wise after a 10% pay increase, because 6.5% of a higher paycheck is a higher dollar amount, but it's still 6.5%. There's no inheritance feature within SBP unless you elect child coverage as a contingency. So if you list children as secondary, and that's the only semi-inheritance type feature that there may be. After that third year, if you didn't use your get out of jail free card, you are locked and loaded to SBP unless Congress agrees to make changes and gives everybody a way to get out. Please take a picture of this slide. Please, please, please. That is DFAS's customer service line. You can also send like an automated message to DFAS and they will respond to you. I just used it the other day for a client. So you can message them with questions. There's the Office of Actuary, and that's a website I use super regularly when it comes to SBP. That premium calculator is on there. The life insurance versus SBP calculations are on there. It's all there, and it is updated every time there's an update to SBP. So if you do have somebody retiring in 2024 and you're planning ahead, keep an eye on it, because whenever they extend out the estimator, you can use that for those new numbers. There's a website here for ARC Special Needs Trust if you need information and where to start. Or there's also the Pacer Center overview for special needs trusts, where you can get additional information. And come back. I want to get to my contact information. So if you guys have additional questions, if you want to talk to me separately, 619-346-1057 is my phone number. There's my email. It is lengthy and obnoxious. I apologize. I have no control over what my email looks like. And then we have centralized scheduling. Centralized scheduling's contact information is here because I can only schedule you to see myself, but any of my teammates can actually help you with this. So if you call centralized scheduling and just tell them that you want to see a financial counselor about survivor benefit plan, they will get you with somebody who is qualified to help you. They're not going to stick you with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, I promise. Real quick, just because I have it pulled up, please let me know if you guys can't see this. This is the DoD instruction for survivor benefit plan. DoD instruction 1332.42, and it's a DoD instruction, not Navy, because this is DoD wide. Even the Coast Guard uses survivor benefit plan. If you had any really just in their questions, I know it's looking like a whole bunch of stuff is just scrolling by. Let me zoom out so it's not quite so huge on your screen. Here you go, and you can actually come to this and click on where you want to go, and it'll take you straight to that chapter, straight to that page. So here we can scroll down, not log down, scroll down to child coverage, dependent children, coverage for adult disabled children, claiming coverage of adult disabled special needs trust. This is all in here, all in here. So this is something that you can review, or if you're like, oh, this is way too much, let me know. I'll go through this with you or for you and help you find the answers, okay? But DoD instruction, or DoD 1332.42 is the instruction for DFAS's survivor benefit plan. Do y'all want me, real quick, please just let me know. Do you want me to pull up the estimator and kind of show you what it looks like real time, or were you happy with the screenshots that were on the slides? We have a few minutes.
You can feel free to unmute yourselves, or I don't know if you're
Yes, please.
trying to
Okay,
scramble
I was just waiting
to
on
type
that.
it or anything.
Nobody is speaking, so we're just gonna hold on real quick. All right, I am going to, let me pull this up so I hopefully don't mess this up. Okay. We are going to share something different. New share. Let's go with new share. Window, here we go. Okay, you guys should be seeing Excel now, right, Anna?
Not yet.
Not yet. Ew.
No, it just says you started screen sharing, but it hasn't
Oh, we need to
popped
give
up
it a
yet.
minute. It doesn't like me. I told you, it's me plus technology equals an uphill battle.
We'll just give it a second.
Yeah. I'm also on a government computer right now, which I'm pretty sure doesn't help anybody's cause. I am going to start typing on here just so that it's started whenever you guys catch up to me here.
You want to try clicking it again?
Yeah, I'm going to hit stop sharing, and then I'm going to go back to sharing. Windows, let's choose you, let's share. Any better? Same, worse?
No, it's the same. Does it come up with the option to be able to show the Excel sheet? Like usually when you share your screen, it has a different windows in it, and you can choose exactly.
Yeah, so I'm not even sharing my whole. I'm not sharing my whole screen. I am sharing my. I'm going to window and I'm clicking on my Excel page here. I'm hitting share.
There we go.
Now it went. Okay. All right. So here's my name, and here in the drop down, you're going to select spouse, child. Spouse and child are insurable interest. I'm going to go with spouse and child. I'm going to say, let's make the pension $4,000 a month. Say that my spouse joined. When did he join? He technically joined November 2003. November, I think 2003. He will retire. It's yelling at me because it's like, hey, that's not 20 years of service. But here I can put November 2023. So now it stops yelling at me. His date of birth, leave it June 1, 1983. Let's say my date of birth is May 1, 1986. Those aren't the actual dates, but it is the actual year. Youngest child, we'll say August 1st of 2020. Okay, so now that I've keyed in all of this, I can skip this RC because this is if you're a reserve component, then yes, you want to tinker here. If you're a reserve component, make an appointment to come see us because there's a lot of it, more details in there. Kind of what you are allowed and not allowed, or supposed to or not supposed to do. When we click on premiums, it says, all right, Chanel, as a service member, your date of retirement, November 4, 2023, you will be 40 years old. Your spouse will be 38 years old. Your child will be 3. If we choose the full base amount of $4,000, that means that the SEP coverage amount is $260 a month. With $260 a month, it would also be an additional 4 cents to add my child. If I wanted to add my child instead of covering my spouse and child, then my child alone is $12.80 a month. So that upon my passing as the retiree, the spouse and or child would receive $2,200 a month. Not too bad. I feel like they'd make the money back pretty quick. So I said my pension was $4,000. What if we don't want to cover my full pension? Well, we can absolutely cover $3,750 of my pension. Instead, I'm going to change the amount on the first tab, come back to the second tab under premium, and it will adjust the SEP premium total and payout automatically for me. It's estimating for 2023 costs. Of course, we can't really estimate too much for inflation, though. And what I would say is, if I'm going to elect this as a military family that is retiring, I'm also going to make sure I estimate taxes. Taxes are something that come to bite retirees pretty hard because military is used to pay versus allowances, pay being taxable, allowances aren't. There's just a whole lot of changes happening when you retire all at once and then fast forward. So definitely use the IRS withholding calculator for your federal taxes. And if you're subject to state tax, check the state withholding or the state tax site to see if there's a withholding calculator. I would look at the SEP or the tax cost with and without SEP, estimate what your tax differences might be. Because if this says $243.79, I might get a $13 savings on taxes and only have to pay $230 total. How would we know what our new monthly be if the 6.5 increases per se? So the 6.5% won't increase. But if I have $4,000 now of pension, and that's what my 6.5% is based off of, I'm paying $260 a month. Let's say Congress says, all right, you're making $4,000, but we're going to give you a 3% pay increase. So $4,000 times 3% increase. Now I'm making $4,120 a month. I'm getting an extra $120 a month because they gave me a 3% pay increase. Well, now 6.5% of $4,120 is $267. So I'm paying $3 more. Because of that pay increase. So the 6.5% is the same. It's the base amount increases. So the dollar of 6.5% based on the new increased amount is a slightly higher dollar amount. Does that make sense? And you'll know it makes like national news and Congress says military's getting a pay increase. And I feel like anytime there's a change to something, DFAS will definitely be like, hey, FYI, this is changing. Nobody panic. Or everybody panic. You are most welcome, Anna. love this little SBC premium cost. The same website I got this on is the DoD Office of Actuary. It's one of the slides I showed you. Also, our wonderful host has access to those, to the slides. She definitely has them. Either one of us can share it with you or give you the link for the DoD Office of Actuary. You can also do an online search of DoD Office of Actuary. SBP, let me see if I can do that and chat the link real quick. DoD Office of Actuary, SBP.
Yes, and then following the workshop, I will send both of you an email with all of the slides and the information that Chanel shared. So you will have that at your disposal.
Yay, there's a premium calculator, probability, subsidy, insurance. There's a whole wealth of information on there. So between that website and the DoD instructions that I showed you guys, the 1332.42, plus that awesome special needs trust brief you guys, workshop you're going to receive in July, I think you have definitely enough information to make a very educated decision. What do you guys think? What questions do you have?
Yes, and I will send you the slides.
Oh, and I think I sent this only to you. How do I chat with everybody? I don't know how to send that message to everybody. Sorry. Oh, hey, I found it. Ignore me. Here we go. There is the link. I was clicking all the wrong options. There we go.
All right, so thank you, Chanel, again for being here and providing all of this wonderful information. It is greatly appreciated, I'm sure. Like I said, following this presentation, I will be emailing you ladies both these slides as well as any information that Chanel shared. And I will also put her contact information in the email as well, so you have it. Right now, I am chatting our Instagram and our Facebook. Feel free to follow us on those platforms and you will be informed about, the latest and greatest about what's going on at our depot, as well as when the video is live on YouTube.